Alright, so back to effects of anxiety. So is it good to be anxious? Or is it not good at all? Well, it depends. When the level of anxiety is low, it is good because it may facilitate, because it will motivate, it will encourage, it will drive someone to work harder so that he or she can perform well. I have had experience with students who are a little bit anxious, most of the time. I observe at least 2 of my students, and their achievement were really good because this level of anxiety, which is not much, it drove them to work harder and to excel. But if the level of anxiety is too high, that will not facilitate. That will make someone or person unable to do something well. Remember, when we are very anxious during exam or before exam, then usually we will not be able to do well what we can actually do well if we are not anxious. So managing anxiety, learner's anxiety, our anxiety, so that our level of anxiety is facilitative, is just right to facilitate, to motivate us, our learners, our students, is good. The next one is empathy. Empathy here is defined or is understood as the process of putting ourselves into someone else's shoes, of reaching beyond the self to understand what another person is feeling. This is the projection of one's own personality into the personality of another in order to understand him or her better. And there are 2 necessary aspects here, of course: awareness or knowledge of one's own feeling and identification of another person. Alright, so people have different levels of anxiety, of empathy, and because this is mutable, so it can change. So we as educators can help students to develop their empathy, their understanding of themselves, and also their understanding of others, so that they can behave properly, they can respect other people well, also during the learning teaching process. The same here as teachers or material developers. We need to show empathy. For example, if we design materials, well, probably there are some students with disability. So when we decide on the characters to include in the materials, probably we need to accommodate those with disability and include one character, for example, to be a character in our book or in our developed materials. Alright, the next ILD factor is extro or extraversion and intro or introversion. We may ask ourselves, am I an introvert or am I an extrovert? As for myself, I tend to be more introvert than extrovert. What are introvert people like? Why is it called introversion? This is the extent to which a person derives a sense of wholeness or fulfillment. Wholeness or fulfillment. Yeah. Apart from a reflection of the self from other people. So I do not need to be confirmed by other people. In terms of wholeness, in terms of fulfillment. I do not derive the strength from other people's comments or approval or whatever. That is if I am an introvert. The same with you. But there are also people who are extrovert. Extroversion is the extent to which a person has a deep-seated need to receive ego enhancement, self-esteem, a sense of wholeness from other people, as opposed to receiving that affirmation from oneself. And also, this kind of person needs other people in order to feel good, not necessarily loudmouth and talkative. Sometimes if we are introvert, when we are with other people, it drains our energy. But those who are extrovert, when they are with other people, they are charged. Their batteries are charged. So they become lively. Well, we have students who are extrovert, but we also have students who are introvert. Then we need to help or to accommodate those types of students to develop in terms of their interlanguage. But if we want to know ourselves, whether we are introvert or ourselves or extrovert, or our students are introverts or extroverts, there are questionnaires that we can download from the internet. We can fill out the questionnaire and then we can see whether we are introvert or extrovert. Alright, so these are the affective domains which have effect on language acquisition. The next is motivation. What is motivation? Motivation is the attitude or affective states that influence the degree of effort learners makes in learning. Basically, we can categorize motivation as extrinsic and intrinsic. What is intrinsic motivation? Well, with intrinsic motivation, there is no apparent extrinsic reward, but challenge. Reward from outside us, outside the students, are not necessary. The challenge, we challenge ourselves. The students challenge themselves to succeed. And also, intrinsic motivation brings about certain internal rewarding consequences. So we, the students, feel the reward from their own success, not from other people. What is the reward? Feeling competence, feeling self-determination. It is different from the extrinsic motivation, because extrinsic motivation anticipates a reward from outside or beyond the self. Students are motivated because they want reward from the teacher. They want praise from their classmates. appreciation from other people, from classmates. And the reward can be in the form of money, financial reward, prize, or grade from teacher, positive feedback from teacher, from peers, classmates, and so on. And then we have resultative. What I said, learners do well will persevere. Those who do not well will be discouraged and try less hard. So this is why the sense of achievement is very important in learning. The sense of achievement will stimulate students' motivation. So it is not motivation that actually result in success, but success stimulate or result in higher motivation. Higher motivation will eventually lead to more success. So it is important for us as teachers to to help our students that they feel successful in learning. How can we do that? When we give feedback, we need to give proper feedback, constructive feedback, not destructive, motivating feedback, not demotivating. But we need to be frank. We need to be frank. And then we also have what is called integrative and instrumental motivation. What is integrative motivation? It's the need to integrate with L2 culture. If you want to live in an English-speaking community, or we want to be accepted by the community of people who can speak English well, then that is integrative. Instrumental, well, we have goal, we want something, and that can only be achieved if we are motivated. So that is more or less instrumental motivation. Do we learn English because we want to achieve something else? If that is the case, then it is instrumental. Alright, students, so this is my talk about individual learner differences. We try to understand it. We try to relate it to our profession as teachers or as prospective teachers, as teachers who have to make lesson plan or design lesson plans, or to design instructional materials, to conduct the learning teaching processes in the classroom. We need to consider individual learner differences so that we can motivate our students, we can help our students develop as a person, and also acquire the language they are learning. So again, I hope by understanding individual learner differences, we will demonstrate our awareness of individual learner differences in language instruction, because our career now and the future is very likely in this field. Okay, so thank you very much for your kind attention, and we meet again in another lecture, another recording with some what is it, mind map,